فلذلك فادع واستقم كما أمرت ولا تتبع أهواءهم وقل آمنت بما أنزل الله من كتاب.
الحمد لله وصلى الله وسلم على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. Inshallah, today we'll get started where we left off in the book Durrat al-bayan في usool al-imaan by Dr. mohamed yousri حفظه. So in this next chapter, or this next section, so we had in the first part of the book that we went over, it was talking about more of like an introduction of some of the basics of where do we get the religion, the benefits of the religion, and some of the reasons that Islam is something that is special over any other religion, of course. And this next section, which he broke, the author here, he broke it into fasl, which fasl is kind of like it's like a section. I made it pretty much a part. And so in this next part, which is like part 2, he talks about the reality of Iman and its pillars. And this is, and then he goes into like a number of different like subchapters. And so in these subchapters, we will talk about different things regarding Iman and some of the different issues that come along regarding these things. And of them, you can see here that he says the reality of Iman in Allah. And this is where we'll start off here. And the reality of Iman in Allah Ta'ala. And so, and this is, we'll talk about what is Iman and also what is Iman composed of. And then also after that, he goes into, it'll be the connection between Islam and Iman, because these are two words. And sometimes they're used interchangeably, and sometimes they have different meanings when they're put together. And also the different levels of Iman. This is talking about the different, as Iman doesn't necessarily have just one level, but yet there's different levels regarding on the people, and of course we know that Iman it increases and it decreases. And so talking about the different levels of these of Iman, and also the exception regarding Iman. So like saying Insha'Allah when someone asks like, are you a mutn? And then for him to say Insha'Allah. This is a issue that is it's put into the books of Aqeedah because of its connection with the meaning of this. And also he talks about the ruling of the one who does the kabira, like the murtakib al-kabira, which is like someone who does a great sin, like what's their ruling, and what is the view of asSunnah regarding them. And also the ruling of the people of the Qibla, like the people who are Muslims in general, in a general sense, like people of the Qibla is the big sense of Muslims, as opposed to saying al-Sunnah wal-jamaa'ah, which is focusing on the people that are upon the truth. And then also chapters of Iman and categories of Tawheed, like looking at the different like when we have like different ways that we look at Iman, and also the breaking up of Tawheed into different categorization. And so the next thing he says is also the evidence of Iman proving his existence to Allah, like showing the proof of Iman, and also in regards of like proving that Allah exists, and some of these evidences that are there. And then the next thing that he says here is also Iman in his attributes of lordship, rububiyyah. And so this is like the attributes that have to do with that Allah is Lord and in control, and that all of this is something that Allah created, and He is the one who ultimately decrees everything. And then also Iman in Allah's names and attributes, and we'll go into this and talk about how we believe in Allah's names and attributes according with the view of al-Sunnah wal-jamaa'ah, and also foundational principles in Iman and His beautiful names, and foundational principles of Iman and His most holy attributes. So going into some basic principles that keep us on the right path with these, and also the fruit of Iman in His names and attributes, like what does this result in? And then singling out Allah Ta'ala with His divine traits, and this is uluhiyyah. So this is another categorization, and uluhiyyah usually has to do with Allah is divine in that He is the only one who's worthy of worship. And so like so looking at His traits that have to do with us worshiping Him, and this is what he's talking about here with uluhiyyah. And then also the fruits of Iman, in His divine attributes. What does this result in? And also iman in the angels, the malaika, also iman in the existence of jinn, and also in the revealed books and in the messengers and the usool, and also what is obligatory and what is possible and what is impossible regarding the messengers, and unique characteristics of the Prophet ﷺ and his rights, and also iman in the last day, and iman in the divine decree and destiny. So this is a breakdown of what we're going to cover in the next few weeks, inshallah. And today we'll get started with the reality of iman in Allah Ta'ala. And so the author here, starting up here, he says Mabhath al-awwal, and this is why I translated as chapter, the first chapter, حقيقة الإيمان بالله تعالى. And he says, حفظه الله, الإيمان بالله تعالى وملائكته وكتبه ورسوله واليوم الآخر والقدر خيره وشره عقيدة المسلمين المتبعين لسنة خاتم النبيين وإمام المرسلين اتفقت عليه كلمتهم واجتمعت عليه أئمتهم وتلقاه خلفهم عن سلفهم. And so here he says that Iman on Allah and Ta'ala, His angels, His books, His messengers, the last day, and His decree, the good and the bad of it, is the Aqeedah of Muslims that follow the Sunnah of the seal of the prophets, referring to like the final, last and final of the prophets, and leader of the messengers. And they're on the same page in it, and their leaders agreed upon it. And the ones that came after took it from the ones who came before. And so this is something that he brought here together, and a lot of this is taken straight from either the Quran and also from the Hadith of Jibreel at the beginning of here. So he says Iman in Allah, and this comes from the Hadith of Jibreel, when Jibreel came to the Prophet ﷺ and sat in front of him and asked him what is Islam, and the Prophet ﷺ, he said he said that Islam is the Shahada and la ilaha illallah wa anna mohamed Rasulullah, and then establishing the prayer and establishing the zakah, and also fasting and hajj. And so he gave him these 5 pillars of what is Islam in general. Then Jibreel, he asked him in the form of a man. He asked him, what is Iman? And then the Prophet ﷺ replied and said, "An tu'mina billahi wa malaikatihi." So he's like, to believe in Allah and wal-malaikatihi, and His angels, wa kutubihi wa rusulihi, and in the books, in His books, and also in His messengers, wal yawm al-akhiri, and then to believe in the last day, and wa an tu'mina bil qadri khayrihi wa sharrihi. And then the Prophet ﷺ said also, and to believe in a qadr, which is that divine, that predestination, as you could look at it, or destiny that Allah has already, He knows what will happen before it happened, and this is something that Allah has already decreed before. The good of it, the good in regards to how we would see it, and the bad of it, which means like how it could seem as bad to us. Of course, everything that Allah does is good. But this is what the Prophet ﷺ, he said when it comes to Iman. Like, what is Iman? And the Prophet ﷺ, he laid down these things in response to the question that Jibreel asked him when he said, what is Iman? And so the Prophet ﷺ, he said this. And so here the author, he says, these things, like Iman, and these things that the Prophet ﷺ said, this is the Aqeedah of the Muslimin. Like, this is every Aqeedah, every Muslim, this is his Aqeedah, this is his belief, and of the ones who follow the Sunnah of the Khatam al-Nabiyyin, of course, in the last and final prophet, and the Imam al-Mursalin, which is the leader, or like the one that comes in front, or that is like the leader of the Mursalin, which is also another term for the ones who are sent, the messengers. اتفقت عليه كلمتهم. So this is something that all of their words, the words of the Muslims and whatnot, they all came together upon this truth. واجتمعت عليه أئمتهم, and all of the leaders, like the Imam, which is the plural of Imam, like all of these Imams, they came together upon this. وتلقاه خلفهم عن سلفهم. And then the Khalaf, and Khalaf is often like refers to the ones who came after. And of course, if someone is Khalfa, قبلك, then this person is behind you. And so like خلفهم is the people that came after, so we would be the khalaf, and salaf are the ones that came before. And so of course this is a religion that came from the ones who were before, and we got of course the Prophet ﷺ, he gave the message to the Sahabi, the Sahaba, and he said he asked them هل بلغت, and then he asked them like, did I send the message? Did I get across the message? And they said yes. And of course then they carried the message to the people that they met, the tabi'in, and then they carried the message to the people that they met, and all of them carried this message. So it comes from the first person to the second person, of course, and this is how we get our religion, is from this way of the last person getting it from the ones who came before, with this connection. And so this is something that is agreed upon, and so this is the basis of this, and this is every Muslim has this basic belief and these pillars of iman, and this is something that is agreed upon by the Muslims and everyone who follows the Prophet ﷺ and his sunnah. And so the next thing that he talks about here is that he says wal-imaan billahi والنطق بشهادتين أول واجب على المكلفين. So he says here, and iman in Allah, and saying the shahada, is the first obligation upon those held responsible. And this is what he calls like a mukallaf, is someone who's held responsible, or like something is, a task is put upon them to do, that they need to do. And this is, of course, he says here that this is the first thing that is obligatory on the individual. And of course this is the first thing that the Prophet ﷺ, when he sent out Mu'adh to give da'wah to the different people, when he sent him on to go spread the word of Islam, the first thing that he told them was the first thing that you call them to is shahadatu an la ilaha illallah. So like the first thing that you call them to, or an yuwahhid Allah, is tawheed. And the first thing, of course, that every single person, they should have this tawheed, and of course this comes with that iman, the iman with Allah, and this also is accompanied with the saying of the shahadatain, and of declaring that there's no one worthy of worship except Allah, and that the Prophet ﷺ is his prophet and messenger. And so this is, of course, this is the first thing that is called upon anyone, and this is the most important thing. And if this is the only thing that someone was able to do in their life, then they would in that case, of course, as long as they didn't come up with anything after that that negated that, this would be something that would enter them into Jannah. And this is something that the Prophet ﷺ also said, that there's no one that declares that there is no one worthy of worship except Allah, and la ilaha illallah, khalisan min qalbihi, and that it's that he says this, or muqidan, that he is bringing, says this with sincerity from his heart, except that Allah will enter him into Jannah. And this is, of course, some of the greatest things that someone can do. And of course, the weight of this on the day of judgment is very, very heavy upon the scale. And this is ultimately the person's salvation when it comes to that, because of course Allah can. Allah says in the Quran, إن الله لا يغفر أن يشرك به ويغفر ما دون ذلك لمن يشاء. That Allah says that verily that Allah He will not forgive for someone to make shirk with Him, but He forgives whatever is other than that for whoever He wants. And this is something that is understood, of course, that whoever dies upon Tawheed, then this is something that they're in, regardless of what they've done other than that, as long as they have that basis of Tawheed, then Allah will enter them into Jannah. And this is of the beauty of Islam, that Allah has given us this religion. And even if there is a punishment that awaits someone who has done a great oppression or something of this sort, as long as they came with that foundation of iman in Allah, that is singling out, and that they came with the shahada, then this is something that they will enter into Jannah eventually. And this is something that is a promise from Allah. And also there's ijma of the ummah upon this, that every single Muslim, anyone who declares the shahadatain, that is, of course, when they say this and they don't come up with anything that negates it, then this person will enter into Jannah as long as he died as a Muslim. And so the next thing, of course, this is the most important, and also just, and I mentioned it before, if you ever have anyone that comes up to you, or if you're giving da'wah to anybody, and they are interested in entering Islam, this is the first thing that they should do right away. And there should never be any delay in this. This is the most important thing. You never know what could happen. So, of course, someone should say this, even if they don't know how to say it in Arabic, or you can't get them to say it in Arabic, they should at least say it in whatever language they can. So, of course, in English, in any way that they can say it in English, saying that I bear witness that that there's no one worthy of worship except Allah, and that Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, or that Muhammad is his prophet and messenger. Like, this is enough for someone to enter into Islam, of course, like in the English language. And if they say it in Arabic, this is good. But this is this is something that is acceptable for someone to be saved, from the hellfire, because they say these words, of course, with the belief in them. And the next thing that the author, he talks about after he brings up this, which is the first of the things that are obligatory, the first obligations, then he says that وَالْمُؤْمِنُونَ أَهْلُ وِلَايَةِ اللَّهِ يُحِبُّهُمْ وَيُحِبُّونَهُ وَيُدَافِعُ عَنْهُمْ وَيَنْصُرُهُم وَيَنْصُرُونَهُ وَيَنْصُرُونَهُ لَهُمُ الْأَمْنُ فِي الدُّنْيَا وَالْآخِرَةِ وَهُمْ مُهْتَدُونَ. And so he says here that the mu'minun, and the mu'min is the person who has that faith and that true belief in Allah. And a lot of times the word mu'min will be used in a general sense as a believer, but the word mu'min, if it's let out by itself and there's nothing else around it, this refers to someone who has that firm, strong belief in Allah. And it's not someone that has weak faith, or that's someone that does great sins and whatnot. We'll talk about this. But when we use the word mu'min, it means that someone is at a great level, and they're coming with all the things that are required of them to come. Like, they come when it comes to their iman, they're doing what is obligatory upon them. And so the mu'minun, here he says, these are and the mu'minun are people of Allah's wilaya. And wilaya here, as I gave a couple different words that encompass this meaning, but which is like, it encompasses love, it also encompasses guardianship, and it also encompasses allegiance. So that we are with Allah. Whatever Allah calls us to do, then we are loyal to Allah, and we're with Him, and He is the one that we look to, and we come together when it comes to these things. And we follow what He says. And then he says something else about it. He says He loves them. يُحِبُّهُمْ وَيُحِبُّونَ. And he says He loves them. Allah loves the mu'minun, and they love Him as well. And that, of course, this is something that is the key trait of a mu'min. Every mu'min, every believer should have this love for Allah. And of course, this love for Allah is something that should be the greater than anything else in the world. And so he brings us here, and this is also referring to the ayah that Allah says, يَا أَيُّهَا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا إِن مَن يَرْتَدُّ مِنكُمْ عَنْ دِينِهِ. And that Allah says here, "O you who believe, whoever from you turns back on his religion, مَا يَرْتَدُّ مِنكُمْ عَنْ دِينِهِ فَسَوْفَ يَأْتِي اللَّهُ." And then he says in response, so Allah will bring فَسَوْفَ يَأْتِي اللَّهُ بِقَوْمٍ يُحِبُّهُمْ وَيُحِبُّونَ. And then he says that then Allah is going to bring a people. He's going to bring up a people that He loves and that they love Him. And this is, of course, then Allah talks about these traits of this, and we mentioned this before, and that أَذِلَّةٍ عَلَى الْمُسْلِمِينَ وَأَعِزَّةٍ عَلَى الْكَافِرِينَ. In that they will be someone who they're humble, and they're helpful, and like they have humility when it comes to the believers and the Muslims, and they also are strong and powerful upon the disbelievers. And so this is something that Allah, He gives these characteristics of the people that are these true believers. These are the ones that they love Allah, and Allah also loves them as well. And of course, the love of Allah is different than the love of mankind, as the love of Allah is in a way that is befitting for Allah, and it has no imperfection in that. And of course, mankind will never reach that level of that. And also, the next thing he says here, وَيُدَافِعُ عَنْهُمْ, and that Allah will that Allah, He yudafi anhum, which is defend, and that Allah mentions this in the Quran, that He defends the people that are the believers. And of course, maybe this is in a way that we see it right away, and also maybe it's in a way that maybe we don't see it right away. And of course, there's examples in the Sirah where Allah allowed the believers to go through troubling trials, but at the same time, this ended up to be something that was great for them in the end. Of course, like the Treaty of Hudaybiyah, and this is something that, of course, this was very hard for the believers when they made this treaty with the Quraysh, that they would any of the Muslims that came to them from Quraysh, they would be sent back to Quraysh and be subjected to that. Any of the men that came to them, and then they would be able to make Umrah the next year, not that year, and they would have this peace treaty for 10 years and whatnot. This was something that was hard for them, but eventually it ended up to be something that was good for them in the long run. And there's many other examples of this as well, and also like looking at the battles that occurred in the time of the Prophet ﷺ. So of course, if we see, like when we look at our brothers and sisters in Gaza and Palestine at this point in time, and we see that they are going through like a pummeling of these bombs being thrown onto their homes and whatnot. Yes, this is something that Allah, Allah defends these people, but also we have to understand that the ultimate victory is that we die upon La ilaha illallah, like that we die as Muslims, and this is the ultimate victory. And that of course we want Allah we want to see this victory in this life, and this is something that we pray and ask Allah to assist them over there in Palestine, and also to bring the Muslims to a place of strength and power, to rid that land of the invaders from the Zionists. And then, so this is something that we know that Allah will defend the people who are the believers in Him. And of course, this is whether we see it or like apparently right now, or whether we see it later. This is something that is assured because of Allah's promise in the Quran. And also He says, فَيَنْصُرُهُمْ وَيَنْصُرُونَ. And then He says here, in this word nasr, it comes into, I translated this word nasr as that He helps them in victory. And like in Nasr, a lot of times it means like a help, but it also in titles like the Nasr is also like something you would talk about when it comes to victory in battle and whatnot. And also then He says وَيَنْصُرُونَ. And so He says, and they help him. And this is like the literal translation. And of course, He's taking this from the Quran. And the Quran, there's no one that like helps Allah with something. And of course, if Allah wants anything, it happens according to Allah's will. But we go and we work and strive in the path of Allah. And this is something that Allah commands us to do. But Allah has no need of us, and we can't change anything that Allah has decreed. And so like when it comes to us helping Allah, this is like something that I translated here as they help His cause. And of course, like this is an easy way to look at it. Of course, we work and we help the cause of Allah in this. But of course, as it comes in different hadith, if all of us we were doing the best of our ability, this wouldn't add anything to the dominion of Allah. One thing, like one drop, even like a drop of like a needle, if you put it into the ocean, and the little drop that comes out, this is not adding to the dominion of Allah one bit. So of course, like our help is not something that actually doesn't necessarily help Allah in a way that Allah can't do this without us, but rather this is something we do for our own benefit, and when we do what Allah has commanded us to do. And this also comes from the Quran and Surah to Mohamed, that Allah says, Ya ayyuha alladhina amanu in tansurullaha yansurkum wa yuthabbit aqdamakum. And that Allah says here that for all the believers for those who believe, if you give nasr to Allah, and like if you help Allah's case or Allah's cause, then Allah He will give you victory, and He will help you. وَيُثَبِّتْ أَقْدَامَكُمْ, and that He will establish your feet. And of course, this is something that is very important in this trying time, when we see our brothers and sisters in this time. This is very important that we go and do the best that we can to follow what Allah has commanded us to do in the ways that we can do it, to come with all the things that are obligatory in our religion, to make sure that we are we're turning to Allah in repentance, and we're turning to Allah in repentance and calling upon Him and turning away from the sins that we have done, and also looking in the ways that we are able to help. As the Prophet ﷺ, he said, whoever is able to help his brother, then he should help him, and this is something that is very important for us. So of course, if we have financial means that we can help, or whether it's by spreading the message of what's going on over there, the oppression, then these are all ways that we can help when it comes to this particular issue. But and also in general, this is something that Allah promises: if we go and we serve in Allah's cause, then Allah will help us, and this is something that is that is a promise from Allah, and also this is the traits of the believers. And then he also says here, and لَهُمُ الْأَمْنُ فِي الدُّنْيَا وَالْآخِرَةِ وَهُمْ مُهْتَدُونَ. And he says that they have, these are the ones that have security in the dunya and akhirah, and they are the ones who are guided. And this also comes from what Allah said in the Quran. It says, الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَلَمْ يَلْبِسُوا إِيمَانَهُم بِظُلْمٍ أُولَٰئِكَ لَهُمُ الْأَمْنُ وَهُمْ مُهْتَدُونَ. And so this is that Allah says the ones who believed, and they had this belief, and then He also says وَلَمْ يَلْبِسُوا إِيمَانَهُم بِظُلْمٍ, and that they didn't mix their iman with dhulm here, and this dhulm here is shirk, as the Prophet ﷺ, he explained that this dhulm here is that they don't mix their iman with shirk, and that this iman is pure and untainted. And then Allah says أُولَٰئِكَ لَهُمُ الْأَمْنُ, and this is a form of saying like these people are like this, and are of this great status. These are the only ones who are like, these ones are lahumul amn, which is they will be the ones that have that security and that peace and that security. Wahum muhtadun, and they are the ones who will be unguided. And there's a uslub al-balaghi here, which is like a certain form of balagha, which is in here, that we understand that this aman, this security, and this hidayah, and this guiding, this is something that is only for these people, because of course, like ulaika lahumul aman, that this is something that this security is only for these people, the people who believed, and they didn't mix their belief with dhulm, which is oppression, and in this oppression, which is like shirk. But also in general, the general principle also applies, as in different levels. But of course, the biggest of oppression and the most severe of them is shirk. And these are the ones who will have that security, and they will be the ones who are guided. And of course, if we want security in our lives, this is something we can take from this ayah, is if we want security for our lives, this is the reason that security will come into our lives, and that the reason that this guidance will come according to the level that we believe in Allah. As Allah mentioned, الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَلَمْ يَلْبِسُوا إِيمَانَهُم بِظُلْمٍ. And so like these are the ones that first they have this iman, and they also don't mix this iman with anything of oppression. And this oppression, of course, if you're oppressing other people, this is a type of oppression, and this will take away from that aman that is for you. And of course, the level of oppression will take away from that aman. And when the Sahabi, they heard this verse, and they asked, they understood this concept that this aman was only for the people that lam yalbisu imanahum bidhulm, like that didn't mix their iman with dhulm, this oppression. And they didn't understand that this oppression was, they saw it in a general sense. And they came to the Prophet ﷺ and they said, which one of us doesn't oppress himself, or like doesn't have this oppression? And then the Prophet ﷺ said, it's not like you're thinking, but rather it's as Luqman said, inna shirka dhulmun azim, that verily shirk is a huge oppression. And so this is like the oppression that is talked about, and this comes in this hadith. But the Sahabi, they understood this specificity, that al-aman, like security is only for the people that accomplish this thing, that they have that iman, and they also don't mix that iman with dhulm. And of course, this is something that, of course, as much as the iman comes up, this also comes to the security as well as the hidayah. So when the iman increases, it's also like that. And of course, when we stay away from any type of oppression, of course, shirk, then this will also be something that is directly related to our guidance and also our security. And this is something that is very important. And this is also Allah, He says that these people will be the ones who are guided. وَهُمْ مُهْتَدُونَ. And the next thing that the author here brings, and may Allah make us of these people. The next thing he says is وَالْحُجَّةُ فِي مَعْرِفَةِ الْإِيمَانِ وَنَقِيدِهِ هُوَ بَيَانُ اللَّهِ وَرَسُولِهِ صلى الله عليه وسلم. And he says that the proof, like hujjah, which is like the proof or the evidence and knowledge of iman, and its opposite is the explanation of Allah and His Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam alone. And this is what's understood here, and this is something that's very important. So when it comes to iman, and when it comes to the opposite of it, which is like kufr, when it comes to these things, this is something that is only for Allah and His Messenger for them to explain, this for us. So we can't come up with anything new about what is iman entail that doesn't have some basis in what Allah said. As in the same thing, we can't say something negates iman except that we have an evidence from the Quran or the Sunnah. This is something that is very key. As one of the greatest issues with some of these like the actual terrorist organizations such as like ISIS and whatnot, the reasons that they go to these extremes is because they make certain claims in this certain thing about iman. They say that these people are no longer have any iman, and so because of that, then they say that these people are like it's okay for us to kill them, and they don't see that these people are even Muslims, and because of this, it creates a huge fitna in the world. And of course, when somebody this creates a lot of oppression between people. And of course, this is some of the issues, like these are of the greatest issues that these in certain organizations or these like groups of people that have gone astray when it comes to iman in itself. It creates serious issues with that. And also, it's not just them that have gone astray in iman. Almost every single group that has gone astray has always gone astray inside of what is iman and when does and what negates iman. And so, like such as like the first of the groups that came across that created issues in the ummah, where like of them is the Mu'tazila, and the Mu'tazila, and before them was like the Khawarij, which are the people that they said that someone who does a big sin like a kabira, then this negates his iman. But this is something that you need proof for this, that this actually negates all of his iman. And then so all of this proof, it goes back to the Quran and the Sunnah, and we take it all together. And this ultimately, in none of the like the logical thinking and whatnot, of course nothing will go against logic, as we mentioned before, but this is something that we ultimately go back to the Quran and the Sunnah to get the definition of iman, what is it composed of and what negates it. This is all something we go back to Allah and His Messenger in this issue. And of course, this is the only place that we can get this, and it's not for anyone to make the ruling that someone is a disbeliever or a believer without revelation, or like without some type of evidence from the Quran and the Sunnah and from Allah and His Messenger. And so the next thing that the author here, he says, Hafidhullah, he says, وَالْإِيمَانُ الشَّرْعِي اسم لمعنى ذي شعب وأجزاء له أدنى وأعلى وأعلاها قول لا إله إلا الله وأدناها إماتة الأذى عن الطريق والاسم يتعلق ببعضها كما يتعلق بجميعها. And so here he says that iman al-shari, so like the iman in the sharia is a word for a meaning that has branches and parts. And so this comes from the hadith that the Prophet ﷺ, he says, iman, it has 70 some branches, and of these branches, which is basically what he gives here, and of the greatest of these branches is the testimony of la ilaha illallah, that there's no one worthy of worship except Allah, and the smallest of these branches, which is like removing a hardship from the road, and also haya, which is like shyness, is as a part of iman. And so the Prophet ﷺ, he says in this hadith that he gives this understanding of iman, that there's different levels of iman, that there's a greater level and there's also a lower level, and it has these branches, and that this encompasses, he said first, that this encompasses the saying of la ilaha illallah, which is something that we say, and of course it needs to be encompassed by belief, and also he also said wa imatatu tariq, wa imata al-adda an tariq, that there's also like getting rid of something on the road that's harmful. This is something that is also a part of iman, so it also comes into the actions, it comes into the limbs. And also then he said that also haya, which haya is shyness, and shyness is not something that is ever seen. For the most part, it's not, you see like the effect of it, but you don't see itself. Like the shyness itself is something that is inside. It's something that happens within someone's heart, and this is also a part of iman. So in this hadith, we can see that there's this kind of breakdown of iman, where it's something that is something we say, of course, the shahada, and it's also something, it encompasses the things that we do that are of charity, and also it encompasses the things that are inside, like the actions of the heart. And so this is what the author here he's going to start to talk about. And so to read what I wrote here in the translation, he says, so iman in the Sharia is a word for a meaning that has branches and parts. So it has branches and parts, lower and a higher. And the highest of which is saying La ilaha illallah. So this is the highest of these branches, saying La ilaha illallah. And the lowest of which is removing something harmful from the pathway. And this comes from that hadith that I mentioned. And the word connects, and then here he says, and the word connects with some of its meanings as well as it connects with all of it. So sometimes we'll find in some of the texts, we'll have the word iman that comes up, whether it comes in like the different forms of like, whether it comes in mu'mineen, or it comes in the form of like amanu, alladhina amanu, or if it comes in yu'min, or la yu'minu, like certain these forms, when it comes in this term, it doesn't always mean all of it. So sometimes it will mean all of like this, that this person encompasses the full of this iman, which has all of these different parts. Maybe it means like the iman encompasses all of this fully, and sometimes it means that this person is missing a major part of it, such as like there's different hadiths that come, such as the Prophet said la yu'minu, and then they asked who is the one that doesn't believe, and he said the one whose tongue is the one whose neighbor is not like safe from his tongue. And of course this is something that, of course, we don't say that someone who talks bad about their neighbor is no longer a Muslim, but rather their iman is weak, and it's not to the point where it's actually obligatory for their iman to be at this level. They're missing the iman al-wajib, like the obligatory iman that they should have, that keeps them in a state of fearing Allah when it comes to their actions. That this is something that the Prophet ﷺ, he negated iman for this person, and like la yu'minu, he said la yu'minu, that this person does not believe, and does not believe, and he says this multiple times, and then he gives this thing, and of course this is a serious sin. Of course, if there's ever like a text that comes about that the Prophet ﷺ or Allah negates iman for somebody, then this is something that is a serious sin. At the very least, it's a serious sin. And if there's other evidences that point to this is actually negating the root or the asl of iman, which is like the foundation of iman, then of course this is something that takes someone outside of Islam. But if it's not something that negates the asl, it could be only negating the thing that is obligatory. And so this comes, and then so the author, he brings this because the problem with the Khawarij and the Mu'tazila is they would bring these two groups, they would look at these texts that say la yu'minu az-zani wa huwa zanin, like that the person who is committing fornication, he doesn't believe while he's committing fornication. They'll look at this text and they'll say this is something that takes him outside of Islam, bye, like this person is a disbeliever. And they didn't take the other texts that show that this person is still like that he's still treated with the ahkam of a believer, and he's still dealt with as a believer, but of course like his iman is so weak that we can't just call him a believer in that sense. We have to say something, he's a believer with weak iman, and so like this is something that of course the people that went, they said that iman is not something that has different parts of it, but rather it's one thing. It's either there or it's not. And this is where a lot of the different groups, they went astray when they would say that iman is just that is only affirmation, like it's the affirmation of belief. So it's like having the affirmation of their belief. And some of them, like some of the groups such as the Murji'ah, which is like in the modern day Ash'aris, they will say that iman is not actually something you say, and it's not something that you do, but rather it's something that is a belief that's in your heart, and it's either there or it's not there. And this is something that that they will say, if somebody believes in Allah and they never said the shahadatain, that this person, if they believe in the oneness of Allah, then they're a mu'min, even though we don't see it. But they'll say that this person is a mu'min. Even so, they'll even say that like Abu Talib, some of them, like these days, they'll say that Abu Talib, the uncle of the Prophet ﷺ, since he knew that, and he has like shi'r, or like poetry, Arabic poetry, that he says, that he talks about, that he knows that the religion of Muhammad is the most beautiful of religions, and it's the most righteous of them, and he praises the religion of the Prophet ﷺ, and he knows the truth that is in front of him, but he still wouldn't say on his deathbed. He refused to say the shahadatain, and the Prophet ﷺ told him to do this, told him to say the shahadatain, like to say la ilaha illallah, and he asked him to do this, and he refused to do that. And then he said that he would be on the deen of or like the religion of his forefathers that were upon that type of shirk and worshipping idols and whatnot. And because of this was something that even if he knew inside of himself that this is the truth, and that Allah is only one and He's only one worthy of worship, he knows this, but he doesn't declare it. That in this case he never walked into with actual iman. But they would say, since iman is just affirmation, which means that you affirm or you know that this is truth, and that that this is something you believe without saying it or anything. So they would say that this person is a believer, and they would say that this person is a mu'min and whatnot. And they go to different extremes, even though like Allah gave Quran to the Prophet ﷺ when he talked about that he was going to pray for forgiveness for him, that Allah sent down that ما كان للنبي that it's not befitting for the Prophet للنبي والذين آمنوا أن يستغفروا, that it's not befitting for the people who, for the Prophet or for the people who believe, أن يستغفروا, and to make istighfar for the disbelievers after it's become clear that they are from the people of the hellfire. And of course, this in this ayah, this is the meaning of this ayah, of course, is like in return to what the Prophet ﷺ said, that he was going to make istighfar or ask for forgiveness for his uncle that died. And so the people that go to this extreme, they fall into like directly or like it's going against like the meaning of this ayah, in that the Prophet ﷺ, or like the reason that this ayah came down was for this meaning, which the majority of the mufassirin, they're on this, they hold that this is the reason that this ayah was revealed in response to this particular story. And of course, this is something that is that becomes very dangerous for people when they look at iman in the wrong way, because iman, it has multiple parts. And so this goes against the Ash'aris and like the Murji'ah, where they would say that iman is either there or it's not. And also this goes against the Khawarij and the Mu'tazila, when they say that someone either if they fall into any part of their if they fall into anything that's a big sin, that is that the Prophet ﷺ said la yu'min, for these people, then this iman has gone completely. But rather it has parts, as the Prophet ﷺ has parts, and the highest of these parts is someone declaring la ilaha illallah. And the lowest of these parts is their actions, like such as like the removing of something on the road. And so this is very important with these actions. And then the next thing, we'll go into a little bit of we'll see what we have here in time. But he also says that iman is a belief. And it says here, wal-imaan اعتقاد وقول وعمل. And so he said that iman is i'tiqad, and this is a belief that is a certain sound. It's a very strong belief. And he also says وقول, which is a statement. And it's also, and then he also says here that it is amal as well. Amal, which is actions, or is like an action. And so he says that this is what iman is composed of, and this is the belief of the Salaf, and they were very clear when they talked about that iman is something that we believe. It's something that we believe, so it's a belief if we want to translate it into English. But it's also qawl. It's something that we say, and when we say la ilaha illallah, or when we even like recite in the Quran with belief in it, and all of the things that can come in that. But the basis of like us entering into Islam with that iman, the basis of that is la ilaha illallah. Declaring that there's no one worthy of worship except Allah, and actually declaring it, not having it inside of our hearts, knowing it but never declaring it. No, it's the declaration of it as well, and as well as the amal, which is the actions that we do. This is a part of iman as well. It is all connected with this. And then he also says وَمِنْهُ بَاطِنٌ وَمِنْهُ ظَاهِرٌ. And then he says that from this is so he says iman is a belief, a statement, and action, some of which is inner. That's what he says minhu batin, and then he also, and some of it which is also zahir, which is apparent, or like something that's outside, on the outside. It's external. So some of it is internal and some of it is external, and zahir holds the term apparent as well as external. And so he breaks this in because some of this is like this i'tiqad. Some of it we can see, and some of it we can't see. We can't necessarily see what someone's belief is from the outside. Although you can see some of the effects of it. Like if someone is standing in prayer, they're facing towards the Qibla, they say Allahu Akbar. We can see the effects of their belief in Allah, and that this is what Allah has commanded them to do, and that they're doing this because of that from the apparent meaning. We can see this, but of course, what's in their heart, this is something between them and Allah. And when they say Allahu Akbar, we know they're declaring something that is truth, and this is of course like an effect. But what's inside of their heart of like showing the respect for Allah and having this like exaltation of Allah and this sincerity, this is something we don't see, but we can see the effects of the iman in a general sense. So in this we can see that iman has an external and also has an internal. And of course the internal is the thing that must be there, and if it ever goes away, like the root of the internal iman, this is something, of course the external is a facade in that case, and this would be like considered nifaq. And the next thing, and so then he goes and he's going to start to talk about the inner part and the outer part. So he says, فَالْبَاطِنُ مَا اسْتَقَرَّ فِي قَلْبِ وَهُوَ أَصْلُ الْإِيمَانِ. And so he says that the inner, like the inner part, is what resides in the heart, and it is the foundation of iman. And this is, of course, as I said, this is something that people don't see this, but rather it's something that we can see the effects of it, but we don't necessarily see it in and of itself. And so this is something that is inside the heart, and it is the foundation. So if the foundation is ever missing, the whole thing is gone. And so this is what's very important for us. And in the next lesson, inshallah, we'll talk about some of these, like the inner part of iman. We'll talk about what it's composed of, with some of the different attributes that go towards this, that must be there for that iman to be solid and for it to be present. And then he also says in the inner part, in the outer part, he says, وَالظَّاهِرُ مَا بَدَى عَلَى اللِّسَانِ وَجَوَارِحِ الْإِنسَانِ. And so he says in the external, or the outer part, it shows from the tongue and the limbs of mankind. So this is something that shows from what we say. When we say something of iman, when we say la ilaha illallah, this is something, you hear that. And this is something that you can see this, and it shows from what we say, as well as it shows from the actions that we do. When you see someone standing in prayer, you see someone making wudu, all of this shows that this is something that shows from that person's iman, is showing on the outside. And of course, this is something that someone only does out of iman. And if they did this out of like showing off, this is something, of course, we'd have to have some type of evidence to know that from something that they said on the outside. But this is a way that we see that iman, and that we can see this. And so he also says here, and iman, he says, وَالْإِيمَانُ وَالْبَاطِنُ عَلَى ضَرْبَيْنِ قَوْلٌ وَعَمَلٌ. And he says that the inner iman is of two types: a statement, which is qawl, and amal, which is action. And so, of course, this is not just something we say, but it's something that also that is an action. And this is this is something on the inside. So this is a qawl. He says a qawl that's inside, which is us, like when we have that inner statement or belief of Allah, that He's the only one worthy of worship. This is on the inside, and this is something we believe. And it's also something that there's action with our heart. Like our heart has certain actions when it comes to Allah. We fear Allah, and that we seek His pleasure, and that we submit to Allah. These are all things that are accompanied in that. And so he says, of course, the first of these, he says, فَالْأَوَّلْ قَوْلُ الْقَلْبِ وَهُوَ عِلْمٌ وَتَصْدِيقٌ وَيَقِينٌ وَاعتقاد. And so he says, in the first of this, which is the two types of the iman that is on the inside, is the statement of the heart is knowledge, and affirmation, certainty, and belief. So these are all the things that it's composed of. One, knowledge. We know that Allah has, we know and we have this belief of Allah. We know Allah, that He exists and according to His attributes and whatnot, and that He's the only one worthy of worship, as well as affirmation of that this is true, what the Prophet ﷺ, he said, and also certainty that we don't have anything that we're not iffy about this. This is something that's certain with us, and also that we have this اعتقاد, which اعتقاد I translate it here as belief, but اعتقاد also like act is something that's like twisted and tied together. So it's something that the word in Arabic, it holds a meaning of something that is firm and that's established. And then he says here in the second, وَثَانِي عَمَلُ الْقَلْبِ وَهُوَ إِخْلَاصُ لِلَّهِ. And then he goes on here and he says in the second action of the heart is sincerity to Allah and exaltation. And he lists quite a bit of these. And I want to save this for the next class that we go into the different actions of the heart, because this is a class in and of itself. But in review, I want to go over Iman, and then I have it here in a chart of Iman that I hope you can see here. And the first of Iman that we have here is we have, 1 second. So we have Iman here, and this is written in Arabic here, and it's something that one of my teachers made up. And so so we have Iman in general, and it's broken into two categories. So we have the qawl, which is the statement, and we also have the amal. And so this is what he says. We have Iman, which is something that we say, and it's also something that we do. And so when it comes to what we say, there's something that we say that happens with the qalb, which is a saying of the heart, and this is knowing Allah and also having that tasdeeq. And he says ma'rifa wa tasdeeq, which is knowing Allah and also having that you believe in what He says and you affirm what Allah has given. And this is something that is a rukn, like this is a pillar of Iman. Without this, there's no Iman. This is something that must be there. And the next thing, on the other side, you also have qawl al-lisan, which is something that is said, but it's said with the tongue. It's something that's said with the tongue, and this is done by the shahadatain. And so this in general, this is accomplished with the shahadatain. When somebody comes into Islam, they say La ilaha illallah, or they say Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa ashhadu anna Muhammad Rasulullah. This is the qawl of lisan, like this is the statement of their tongue, and this is something that is a rukun. Without it, this is a pillar. Without it, there is no iman. It has to be there. This is something that must be done. Of course, for someone who is born into Islam, this is something that establishes Islam, and so they can't negate this. But in general, like for someone to come into Islam, they have to have this, and this shahadatain can never be something that is negated from them. And then the next thing from the other side, like if we were to look at the actions, so the actions also have different categorization. And so we have the amal, and the amal, or like the actions, they break down into, we have the actions of the heart, and this is where the author is about to go into, which is the actions of the heart. And the actions of the heart, they fall into the two different categories here. There's one category which is the asl amal al-qalb. And this is there's the smallest bit of these actions, or like the smallest bit that for this action to actually be there, such as like fearing Allah. So if somebody says I don't fear Allah, and they don't fear Allah, this person has negated this action, which is they've negated the foundation of this action. They say they don't fear Allah. That is required of them. And this, the asl al-amal al-qalb, this is something that is a rukun. So without it, there's no iman. So if somebody says, I don't fear Allah, this person has left Islam. And this is something that is mentioned even in like books of fiqh, that someone who says, I don't fear Allah, then this person has left Islam with that word of saying that they don't fear Allah, because this shows that they don't have even that respect of Allah, and that shows that their iman is not there anymore. And so, of course, that comes from them actually saying it. If they only believe that this is something that's between them and Allah will judge them according to what's in their heart. And we judge them according to what we see from the outside, or from what they have actually said. and we don't open up anybody's heart to go inside. But this is something, but if they say that, then they've exposed something that is inside the heart that goes against that. And then there's also, these actions of the heart, they're not just at one level, but rather they have multiple levels. And so this is the basis, like this is he says, amal al-qalb. And so like amal al-qalb is something that is the basis, the root foundation. Without it, this person's iman does not exist. The next part over here is kamal al-amal al-qalb, which this is the completion. Like this is person, he's very, very fearful of Allah. He's not like he has a little bit of a fear of Allah, that this person, say this person smokes. He drinks, he does all the things that are haram. But if you ask him about the Day of Judgment, he's like, man, I'm scared. I'm very scared. Or like, this is something that's very scary. You know, like I'm scared that Allah's going to punish me for all the things that I'm doing. Like this person has the asl, like the foundation of fear of Allah is there, even though it's weak. But if you see someone who's constantly standing up in prayer at the night prayer, he's working, he's working and calling people to Allah, and he fears Allah. And if Allah is mentioned, then he is like shaken. When he hears a khutbah, like his eyes water up and he cries when he thinks about Allah. This person, he has that kamal al-amal al-qalb, like he fears Allah in this greatest way, and to where this is something that is at a higher level. Of course, to reach that level is something that takes a lot of effort and work, or maybe Allah makes it easier for some than others. But this is something that this person has worked on, this action of the heart that we don't see, but this is something that is very important. And this is something that makes, like, of course, the Sahaba were like the actions of their heart were something that put them above the rest of the world, and like the actions of Abu Bakr that are in his heart, this is something that put him above. Like maybe he didn't do a lot of, like, maybe there are some actions that he would give in charity and whatnot, and other people would give more than him, but his actions in his heart and the reason that he gave this and where he came with what he did this from, what he was doing, this is something that with his intention and with the actions of his heart, this made this thing much more weighty. Like these actions, like the actions that he actually does with his limbs, it becomes much more weighty when he has the actions accompanied with the vast amount of actions of the heart. And so this is something that there's a level of kamal, which kamal means like completion or like the pinnacle. And so like this is a whole, there's many different like gradations of this. But at the basis, he needs to have this basis, like the foundation that we fear Allah, we respect Allah, we would never do anything to disrespect Allah. Like this is a basis that needs to be there. Without that, then iman doesn't exist. And so this is important. But coming up to the highest level of this is something that is mustahab, or like this is something that is either wajib or mustahab, depending on what it is. But this is something that's either obligatory or it's like preferred and it's loved by Allah when it comes to the higher levels of this. And also when it comes to the actions, there's also the actions, as he said, there's the actions of the tongue. And the actions of the tongue are such as when we make dhikr, this is actions of the tongue. But the actions of the tongue also can be like calling people to do what's good and giving dawah or teaching. These are actions of the tongue, and maybe they're not actions of the limb, but they come into this category as well as the shahadatain could be considered from that. And so of course the shahadatain is a rukn. But also the actions of the tongue are something that are also a part of Iman. And if anyone's actions of their tongue, they go against the asl of Iman, this is something that is a part of Iman, and that either that could possibly negate it if they said something like I mentioned before. And we seek Allah's refuge from any type of from saying anything that is displeasing to Him. And so the actions of the tongue are also a part of the actions here. And also, there's also the actions of he says, amal al-jawarih, which is the actions of the limbs. And so the actions of the limbs, they're broken into a couple categories. And the reason he broke them into a couple categories here is because of the difference of opinion in this. And so like one, there's the mabani al-arba. And so this is salah, az-zakah, as-Sawm, and Hajj. Like, so these are the four things. When the Prophet ﷺ was asked, what is Islam? And the Prophet ﷺ, he answered with Shahadatain. We've talked about this. This is like entering into Islam. And then the next of these, as-Salah, Zakat, Sawm, and Hajj. These are the four pillars of Islam. And so these four pillars of Islam, there is a difference of opinion. If somebody leaves of these one of these pillars of Islam, does his Islam crumble? Some of the examples that scholars such as Ibn Rajab, he gives, like if somebody if one of their pillars in their house is missing, their house falls down. It has to have these pillars. And so this is a difference of opinion that some have said that these issues, if someone leaves the salah, then this person has left Islam, like for this. And of course there's evidences that give it weight, and there's also evidence that point to someone leaving some of these actually doesn't take away their Islam, but rather it shows that they're missing they're subjecting themselves to a grievous punishment, but they're still of the people that Allah would at least take them out of the hellfire because of the iman that is left in their heart. And so there's a big difference of opinion when it comes to these things. And the biggest difference, or like the biggest conversation, is regarding salah. This is the biggest one. And then zakah, sawm, and hajj, they're also talked about, but the biggest one is salah. This is the one that is most talked about, as in, and there's a difference of opinion. And the majority, the vast majority, is the person who leaves salah, they have committed kufr, they have committed disbelief, but this is a disbelief that doesn't take them outside of Islam, as long as it's not accompanied by something such as like pride or arrogance. And then in this case it would take them out of Islam with no difference of opinion. And so the other side of this, which we have the mabani al-arba, which are these which is salah, zakat, sawm, and hajj. These four are of course the foundation of Islam in and of itself, and this is how we show Islam on our limbs. And so these are something that it's debated about whether or not this is something that takes someone outside of Islam. If someone leaves this, does this take someone outside of Islam? And of course, like someone who has hajj, it's very weak for someone to say that someone who doesn't have hajj or doesn't make hajj when they could, out of laziness, of course. They didn't make hajj out of laziness when they had the ability, to say that this person is a disbeliever afterwards, because they didn't know when they were going to die. There's other hadiths that talk about someone making up hajj for their parents. So how could they make up hajj for their parents when it was obligatory if this person was no longer a believer? So there's this, and also like sawm, and the same thing that goes for sawm, like making up sawm for a disbeliever is impermissible. So that's something as well. And also zakah. There's also a hadith that talks about the people who don't give zakah, they will be trampled by the zakah that they didn't give. Of course, like zakah comes into animals. Like there's we'll talk about this inshallah after salah. In our books and the book of fiqh, but the zakah will come back to them and on the day of judgment, and will run over them on the day that is like 50,000 years. It will trample them over and over again, and then at the end of this, Allah will show them, in the hadith it states that at the end of this, Allah will show them their path either to Jannah or to Nar, or to the hellfire. And so the fact that it's either to Jannah or to the hellfire shows that there's the path to Jannah for them, so they're still a believer. And this is the evidence that if someone breaks apart salah from zakah, then salah in this case, this is something that, of course, the Prophet ﷺ said, whoever is the difference between us and the mushrikeen is salah. And also the Prophet ﷺ said, whoever leaves salah, faqad kafar, that he has disbelieved. And of course we don't disagree with this, the wording of this, that we say this person is a kafir, but we don't say that he's a kafir in the meaning of that he's no longer Muslim. So we have to say that he's committing kufr, that is a type of kufr that is not kufr. And this is the majority opinion. And those who do say that he is an actual disbeliever, then this is an opinion that has weight. It has weight behind them, and there's evidences and whatnot. And this is something that we agree to disagree in this. This is a khilaf mu'tabar. because of the difference of opinion on this, we accept this is a view, and it has its evidences, and this is a view, and there's also lots of evidences for it. And me personally, I don't make a difference between zakah or salah. And so like if zakah is something that doesn't take somebody outside of that, then salah is also of the same thing. And this is also something that Abu Bakr talked about when he was going to fight the people who refused to give salah. Of course, this is a specific circumstance where he said his call to them was, I will fight the people who will make a difference between salah and zakah. And so, of course, there's a huge difference of opinion, and this is a long conversation, and there's not enough time for this, for the difference of opinion going into salah. But it is a big difference of opinion, so we agree to disagree with anyone if they say one opinion or they say the other opinion. It's something that we understand there is evidence behind it, and many great scholars have said that it is something that leaving it takes someone outside of Islam, leaving it out of laziness. And if somebody if somebody says that it doesn't take you outside of Islam, this is something we agree to disagree in this. And the next thing that he says here, and the other, so this is the foundational four, like the Madani al-Arba. There's like the four foundations of Islam besides the Shahadatain. And so then the next thing on the other side is Masiwa Mabani al-Arba. So everything else of the actions that are called for us, whether they're obligatory, then they take, this is a part of Iman that is obligatory for this person. And also whether it's haram, then this is something that is also like he's doing something that takes it away. But this doesn't affect the basis of Iman. The basis of Iman is still there, like the foundation, the root. Like if you were to say like just that little grain, that mustard seed that will take someone outside of the hellfire if they were to enter it. This is something that that doesn't get removed by someone doing of the greater of the sins, or they're falling into missing their obligatory actions. Yes, maybe they're subjected to punishment in the hellfire if Allah doesn't forgive them, but this is not something that takes them outside of Islam, and this is something that is an action which is a part of Iman, but it doesn't take away all of their Iman. And of course, this understanding of Iman in these different categories. So let's I'll pull it back out a little bit here. So understanding Iman and understanding that it is as something that we say, which has to do with our heart, as well as what we say with the Shahadatain, and also that it has to do with the actions. And so these are these two things. So it's the qawl and it's the amal, which is the actions, and also it is the what we believe inside, and also the Shahadatain. These are the things that are ultimately, these are a pillar of Iman itself. Like having that the belief in Allah, knowing that Allah exists, of course, and knowing that Allah has His messengers, and affirming that this is a pillar of that Iman. Without it, the Iman is no longer there. And also saying the Shahadatain, without it, the Iman is no longer there. And also the foundation, or the littlest part of these, the amal al-qalb, like having that action of the heart, the littlest, the smallest amount of it is something that without it, if you no longer have even that smallest amount, then this is something that takes someone outside of Islam. As well as then there's the difference of opinion when it comes to salat, zakat, and Sawm, and Hajj. And like the opinion that I see the dalil, or like the evidence points towards, is that this is something that is obligatory for someone, and if they don't do it, then they are subject to punishment, but they're not someone that's a disbeliever, and Allah knows best. And this is an area of difference of opinion, and so we take that in due respect with everyone in whatever they go towards in that. والله تعالى أعلم وصلى الله وسلم على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين.
فلذلك فادع واستقم كما أمرت ولا تتبع أهواءهم وقل آمنت بما أنزل الله من كتاب وأمرت لأعدل بينكم الله ربنا وربكم لنا بيننا وبينكم الله يجمع بيننا وإليه المصير.